everyone. My name is Evie Lupine. Welcome back to my channel, and today I have another video for you all. Today we're going to be talking about how to deal with extreme and unusual kinks. It is not at all uncommon to get into a new BDSM relationship or even be in a relationship for 20 years and try out kink for the first time and discover, oh, my partner has some kinks and I don't really know how I feel about them. I'm not sure I can do them. I don't know how comfortable I am with them. I don't know if that's even possible to do. And today I want to give you some tools so you can figure out how to work through those kinks and maybe actually get to try them. Now, when it comes to what counts as an extreme kink, I am putting that in air quotes on purpose because it is very subjective. What one person considers to be extreme, somebody else will go, oh, it's just like a Tuesday night, you know? So for some people, doing an over-the-knee spanking in a schoolgirl uniform would be very transgressive and extreme, and for other people, that's super mundane. Even things like blood or water sports that to an outside person might seem to be pretty extreme can be banal to others. I know many people that just go, oh, water sports? That's nothing. That's super easy. And other people go, oh my gosh, you would want somebody to pee on you? Oh, could not possibly believe that. So this is going to be very general advice for anything you personally consider to be extreme. It's kind of like trying to define what edge play is. Like, it's very much based on your own personal edge, where that line just sort of gets to the edge of your comfort zone or skill set and you don't really know what to think about it or what to do. That's really what I'm going to be focusing on. But before we get into any advice on how to explore more extreme kinks, I do want to emphasize that this video is not meant to like talk you into doing things you don't actually want to do. The number one rule is that this is intended for helping you explore things you've already decided you want to explore but don't know how to do. I do not want anyone to feel forced or pressured to do any kink they don't want to do just to make their partner happy. And this is true for both bottoms and for tops, for doms, for subs. It doesn't matter. If you feel pressured by a partner to do a kink, you should not have to do that kink. I don't care if you're in love. I don't care if you've been married for 20 years. I don't care if they're your master and you're their slave. It doesn't matter. You should not do anything you don't want to do. You are allowed to have boundaries even if the kink is really super important to your partner. It is okay. Sometimes we're just not going to be compatible on everything, and it is something that should be accepted and discussed and talked about. So, assuming that we're all on the same page about we want to try stuff, we want to explore these more extreme out there kinks, let's talk about how to start doing that. And the number one thing I always suggest starting with is to keep things online. You don't always have to rush into doing things in person, and I really feel like online spaces, be it like Discord chats, even emails, or whatever messaging system you want to use, I think that kind of back and forth, more separated messaging can really help you understand more about why somebody is into a particular kink, because they can be more descriptive about why they like something in their mental state. Like, if you've ever sexted somebody, if you've ever done any online role play, this is basically that. I advocate for just like trying stuff out over text first. And the reason why I like this is not just because there is that separation where, like, if you get uncomfortable, you just close the chat, you log off. That is a really good feature, but also because sometimes new and extreme kinks are expensive to learn about, to get supplies for. Like, if your partner wants you to like draw their blood, like, okay, I gotta go take phlebotomy classes, I gotta buy all this like blood play equipment, like that's quite the expense in terms of both time and money. And before you go to all that effort, sometimes it is worth it to just try it out and feel it out over text to decide, okay, now we want to make a bigger investment. It's very much like a try before you buy type scenario, somewhat literally. And so text is really great because you can really explore that mental and emotional side of a kink, ask a lot of questions, and really only go as far as you want to go, because it is so much easier to stop something over text and kind of steer the conversation in the way that you want it to go versus like in person, when when you're in the moment doing a scene, and like if somebody's in the middle of drawing your blood, like there's a process before you can stop doing that. You know, you can't just like pull everything out and be like, all right, I'm done. Nope, hit my limit, peace out. So online is really, really good for maintaining that separation and just kind of trying out a little taste first before you get into it. Because also, for the person that has the more extreme kink, because this is for both sides of the equation here, sometimes you might discover that the fantasy you have in your head of your extreme kink, when you're actually doing it with somebody else, it takes away a little bit of it. Or maybe you need to reevaluate the way you approach it to have that kink work with a partner, because maybe the way you think about it in your head solo is very different from how you'd want to do it with somebody else. And you never know, just by talking about it, you might be able to find some common ground about your person's kinks, right? You may go, oh, this kink isn't really for me, but I understand why you'd like this because this is similar to why I like bondage. I find that oftentimes for a lot of kinks, even though they can be radically different from each other, many kinks share a few core values and motivations behind them, right? Whether it be feeling small and cared for or feeling powerful. There's a lot of through lines and connections between pretty disparate kinks. But assuming that you've done the chat thing and you've discovered you are comfortable and you want to move into doing stuff in real life, my next suggestion is for hypnosis. And hear me out, okay? This is like pretty extreme for the second thing on a list, but it does have a lot of utility. And I know there are a lot of people that are very skeptical about hypnosis, and if you're just like, hypnosis, not my thing, think it's totally bunk, don't believe in it, go ahead, skip to the next one. But if you are curious about hypnosis, I do have an interview that I've done about hypnosis that for some reason people like don't know is on my channel, so link to that down below. Pup Amp has a good video on it, mainly Mandy has a good video on hypnosis, and just there's lots of hypno content on YouTube actually. So again, links below if you want to check out those other videos to go more in depth on hypnosis. But hypnosis is really great because it allows you to do literally anything you want to do. Do you want to pretend that you're a princess being captured by a horrible dragon and flown away to a castle on a mountaintop? Hypnosis will let you do that. Do you want to pretend that you're a human sacrifice being dangled over a pit of lava? You can do that with hypnosis. Do you want to pretend that you're a mer person that's been captured by a terrible octopus in the deep ocean? You can do that with hypnosis. So this is a really great way of exploring kinks that require either like typically a lot of costuming, a lot of prep, a lot of suspension of disbelief, real like theater kid type energy. Hypnosis is a really good tool for exploring those like really role play and setting heavy kinks that you aren't really easily able to do in maybe a typical dungeon or home context. Hypnosis is also good because nothing physically is happening, right? It does take more work to learn how to do this, and there are books and workshops that you can use to learn more about hypnosis, but if you don't want to go that far and it's too much effort or time or money, what you could do instead is self-hypnosis. You could have your partner who wants to be hypnotized, like sitting down somewhere, having headphones in or earbuds, and listening to a self-hypnosis tape or a recording on YouTube. And then you can be involved with that as the partner by maybe having them put on a blindfold or being next to them while they're doing it, and maybe you're sitting right there and you're stroking their thigh or you're scratching their head or doing something that makes sense with the ASMR or the hypnosis that they are listening to, and being involved with that in some more tangible way. It could also be that maybe you got on like a full costume and then you're kind of like there visually while they're being hypnotized, even though they're kind of doing the scene to themselves. But then if you decide that you get comfortable with that and you want to learn how to do hypnosis to your partner, this is a really great way to do more extreme kinks that really actually doing the more extreme kink that would be hard to pull off or impossible to do in real life. So don't overlook hypnosis if you don't really know a whole lot about it. It's definitely worth looking into and doing some research on. My next suggestion is probably even more important than hypnosis is. It's like the biggest one I'm gonna say on this entire list, most likely, and that would be a good old-fashioned bait and switch, aka mindfuckery. And without going into a full tutorial on what that is, essentially the purpose of this is to make your partner believe you're doing something that you're not really doing, and relying on their brain to trick them into having experiences or assuming they're having experiences that they're not really actually having. And the benefit of this is that it is lower cost and can require far less training than something like hypnosis would, but it does take a lot more like prep work in advance notice, because typically what you will do for a scene like this is you will negotiate well in advance, hey, we want to do this kind of particular scene, but I'm not actually really going to do that to you. I'm going to kind of trick you into thinking I'm doing that. Is that okay with you? And having more time separating out like the negotiation and the scene can help make sure that the scene goes the way that you want it to, in terms of like convincing the person that you're doing the thing you're not actually doing. But if you have the time to invest in this, it can be a really awesome outcome. And I think a classic example of this would be like maybe your partner is really into the idea of like a home invasion and like being taken by like an evil person, and they're being kidnapped, they're going to be used, and at the end they're going to get their throat slit, and obviously you can't really slit your partner's throat, and so you gotta do something else instead, right? So the way that this would work is maybe you like plant some seeds before you really actually do the scene. You leave something up on the home computer, you get a mysterious box in the mail, that kind of stuff. You know, leave them to believe, oh, could they be researching this? Could they really be thinking about the best knife to slit my throat with? Maybe they might actually do it. Oh, they wouldn't really though, would they? Like start planting those seeds of doubt. Maybe you watch a little bit of ID Discovery. Maybe you watch a lot of true crime. Maybe you play some spooky music for the week ahead of time, you know? Like, you really lay a lot of foundation, lay a lot of seeds. What is really important with this is you have the right set and setting in terms of mindset and also with setting. Because if you don't have that, it's going to be a lot harder to pull off. So if you try to do, like, an interrogation mindfuck scene, but you're doing it in like a super romantic bed and breakfast that's owned by like two really cute elderly people, that's probably not going to work out. And if you want to have this done right, you're going to have to think about, okay, the lighting, the smells, the sounds, how is that contributing to this scene space? How might that make this person go along with the thing that I want them to believe is happening? And if you don't really have a lot of control over the setting, like maybe you don't have a dungeon near you, you have a small apartment, whatever else, your best friend is going to be a blindfold and sensory deprivation. Make sure your partner is staying in their head as much as possible. That could be earplugs, that could be a blindfold, that could be a hood over their head. Do what makes sense for the context of the scene and the role play that you're doing, but that can make such a big difference, because not only will it restrict them kind of getting outside information that might kind of pull them out of the headspace, it also will start to make them kind of second guess themselves, right? If you put all that on them and then you spin them around a bunch of times and walk them around the house and then eventually put them somewhere, they might not really know, am I in the kitchen or the bathroom? Am I in the bedroom? Where am I at? Is that a breeze? What's that noise? And that might really help you be able to trick them into maybe thinking that you put them in the shed in the yard, or maybe you never left the house, but maybe you did because you heard the door open and then it was walking outside on sidewalk, and what happened? Where am I? That can all really take things up to another level. And so let's go back to the knife example to really kind of emphasize how this would actually end up playing out. So let's say your partner has that fantasy with the knife, and maybe when you're in the scene space, you're playing some like creepy background music from one of the true crime shows that you were listening to. Or maybe you have a couple of knives laid out around the scene space beforehand or around the house, and they go, oh, maybe which one's gonna be used, but really actually have a prop knife you're going to be using that's hidden on your person somewhere, and they don't know it's there, but they might see all of the other big sharp real knives around and think, oh, maybe they might end up actually using that one. And then you put them in the blindfold, you're doing the rest of the scene. I really recommend kind of not doing the full mindfuckery like initially right in the scene at the very beginning, because you need time for the brain to kind of get used to the setting you're in and kind of get lost in that role play. So do the role play. Maybe if you're doing more of like a heavy impact play like torture scene, focus on doing that first, really get them into the mindset of the scene that you're in, and then at the very end, that's when you pull off the mindfuckery. And maybe you've been running a knife, a real knife, over their back, over their chest, maybe up onto their chin, just gently going against where you're actually going to be doing the full-on scene. And then at the last minute, maybe you pull out your knife that's been soaking in a bucket of ice water just out of sight, under a tablecloth, whatever. And then at the very end, you drag it across their throat. Oh my gosh, I've literally seen this happen before in a scene. That is such a big mindfuck to have happen because you're feeling the liquid, it's cold, it's sharp, oh my gosh, what's happening? And then you realize you're actually fine. You go, God damn it, why'd you do that? And then hopefully it's a good God. You both really enjoyed it. But yeah, that's a very intense scene to do. But that just goes to show, even with a pretty extreme scene that involves a very physical action, you can trick people into thinking that you are doing something that you're really not. And that could be a really great way of simulating things that are impossible to do or would be very risky to do for real. Now, if mindfuckery and hypnosis are too much for you, don't worry, there are still a couple of other options. For my next suggestion, I would recommend relying on your voice and having your words do the work for you. This is almost kind of like a mini version of like hypnosis or mindfuckery because you're not really like tricking somebody or mind controlling them, but you are relying on their brain to create the scene for them in their head without you actually having to do the particular scene. So let's say that your partner has like an extreme humiliation kink and they want to do it in public, right? They want to be dressed up head to toe in like Care Bear stuff and have their hair dyed and bleached and be, you know, put in a heavy face of makeup and pigtails and whatever. And they want to be paraded around in public on a leash and have people pelt them with eggs or something and tell them that they're a horrible sissy slut or whatever. I don't know. That would be difficult to immoral to pull off in public. So you're going to have to try to do stuff maybe not quite so extreme. And so I think this is a really good way of engaging, especially if your kink is like more sexual, because it's kind of like sexy role play, dirty talk almost, but with a more BDSM bent to it. And it doesn't have to be sexual if you don't want it to be. But what I think of when I think of doing a scene like this is I would picture having your partner sit somewhere restrained, blindfold on, really allow them to sink into whatever your words are saying. If you have the money for it, you can even get some headphones and even be talking to them with like noise canceling headphones on, so the only thing they can hear is your voice. And then you start to paint them a picture of the scene that you're going to be doing, and you're walking around and you're talking to them, and then maybe you whisper in their ear about, oh my gosh, you are such a dirty little sissy slut, aren't you? I mean, oh my god, look at that tutu, those pigtails, that's just disgusting. I can't believe you'd want to go out of the house looking like this. You want to be made fun of, don't you? And just, you know, take your time, work your way up. If you're not confident with dirty talk, I recommend starting with like the online version first. And this is actually a really good transition to go from doing things and talking about them online to doing them in person like this. That is a really good way to bridge between doing things online and in the real world. But, you know, take it slow, check in, make sure your partner knows if it is a humiliation kink or something like more emotional, that you don't really think that about them, that they're a good person. Always make sure you're doing lots of aftercare for yourself and for your partner when doing these more extreme kink scenes if you are butting up against boundaries or it's very mental or emotionally intense. And I think this is also really good if you have a kink where you want to try it out in real life, like simulating it but not really doing it, but you're not quite comfortable enough to really do that yet. Like maybe you have like, I don't know, like a castration fetish and you want to do a scene at some point where like your partner mind fucks you and they have like a carrot that's been, you know, rolled up in turkey meat or something, and then they like, you know, chop it with a meat cleaver between your thighs or something, and you want to have that experience of feeling that and trying it out, but that's too much right now. This is a good thing to try before you go into something maybe more like hypnosis or mindfuckery. But moving on, outside of doing things individually with your partner, I feel like there are a few options that people don't normally think about when it comes to satisfying a partner's kink needs. And that would be co-topping and co-bottoming. Because sometimes the issue isn't really like your comfort level with the kink. It's just like so out there that you don't really ever practice it, right? Like, oh, I'm totally fine with needles, I just don't have any idea how to do them. And co-topping can be a really good way of trying out a more extreme kink with your partner in a more controlled setting where you are doing it with somebody who knows about it and is more experienced with doing it. The energy of a co-topping scene can be a little bit difficult because it can get kind of competitive. You might feel like your partner likes this other more experienced top better. So do be careful if you are a little bit more prone to jealousy, you don't have like a super secure attachment, or if you're really strictly monogamous, this might not be the route to go. But when you are a top who wants to satisfy a bottom with more extreme kinks, this can be a good way of working on your skill set without just like having to privately study by yourself and then suddenly 6 months later go, all right, I'm an expert at whips, let's try it. Like sometimes you want to get that more hands-on practice and more like feedback from an experienced partner. And even if co-topping isn't really the direction you want to go, I think it's always worth it to find people in your local community, even online, who know more about the kink that you want to do and have conversations with them. Talk to them about why they're into it, how they learned about it, what they would recommend for practicing, and just get that knowledge. And even if you just do that, that can be very valuable. Now, on the co-bottoming side, this is also very much an option because sometimes it's not just like the bottom wants to do more extreme things. The top might want to do more extreme things, and the bottom might not necessarily know how they feel about that, but they're willing to try it out. And sometimes having a more experienced bottom there can also be very valuable because that gives you somebody that you can talk to and relate to, and you can, outside of that scene, get to know them better, figure out why they're into that particular kink, how they got started with it, what they'd recommend again, all kind of the similar things you get from talking to somebody that's more experienced as a top doing something. But I think also during the scene itself, it can be helpful in terms of getting cues from that person in terms of like, how should I react? What should I do for pain processing? What does that look like? That can also be a really good thing to be able to learn from and do. And sometimes it ends up being like a really beautiful thing, a beautiful addition to your relationship. But of course, again, some people, a lot of people, most people are very monogamous and wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable with doing this. But if you do have the ability to do this, I wouldn't look past it as an option. And now for my final suggestion, I want to talk about power exchange, because power exchange can be such a huge benefit when you want to do more extreme kinks. Now, I am not saying as a dom or a master, whatever other label you use, that you should be able to go, slave, we're doing this kink, shut up and like it. Like, don't do that unless it's like hot for both of you and that's your dynamic normally. I'm not trying to say that you should use your power exchange to manipulate somebody into doing something they don't want to do. I'm saying you can use it as a tool to help somebody be more comfortable doing a kink that's outside of what they are normally used to. And where I think this really works well is when you have tension between like your dominant side and your sadist side, or your submissive side and your masochist side. Because let's say maybe as a dominant, you're not super comfortable with heavy impact play, like just by itself. You're like, oh, I don't really know about that, seems too much for me. But then when you put it in the power exchange context of somebody being punished or doing it as a service to you, you go, oh, no. Okay, that makes sense now. I'm not into this just for like the sadism part of it. I'm into this because it's an act of service. And maybe as a submissive, it's a very similar thing where you're not really into typically heavy impact play by yourself, but maybe when it's your partner asking you to do it as an act of service or to submit to them or because you need to be punished for something, maybe that context gives it a new, different flavor. We can go from, oh, I don't like this, to now, okay, maybe I'm into this a little bit more. And we have so many different options for role plays and scene flavors. Don't be afraid to experiment. Maybe one headspace doesn't really work for the goal that you have for a scene, but maybe something else does. Maybe your pet side doesn't really make sense with heavy impact play. Maybe your brat side does. Or maybe your service sub side does. Don't be afraid to see what'll end up working. Experiment, try different things, talk to your partner, communicate as always, and eventually I bet you'll probably discover a combination of things that you weren't necessarily expecting but can be very rewarding for the relationship. Now, in addition to power exchange just kind of working by itself to help you explore more extreme kinks, I think it also works together with other suggestions I've given so far to make those work even better, right? Like maybe when you're just talking to your partner and doing kind of dirty talk, that doesn't really do so much. Maybe when you infuse a little bit more power exchange into it, when they're like leaning onto your wrists or controlling where your head's moving, or you're telling them that like, because I'm your dom, because I'm your master, I'm ordering you to enjoy that experience or this experience. maybe that actually makes it work a lot better. Or maybe when you have a partner who's submissive, maybe it's an act of service to tell them to go do a scene with somebody else. Because sometimes at the end of the day, as a Dom, we might not have the skill set to be able to do a particular kink yet. And we want our partner to be able to have fun and explore things, but they don't want to be disloyal to us, or they don't want to offend us in some way. So they need that permission that power exchange can give them to feel comfortable going out and exploring other possibilities. And maybe it feels more okay if they can get that permission, that order even from their dominant partner to try out those kinks with somebody else. And again, this is not something that you should misuse in order to get somebody to do something that's outside of what you've already negotiated for. If you have a closed monogamous relationship and you haven't talked about playing with other people, you should not take advantage of your power exchange relationship to convince your partner to be comfortable with something they've previously said no to. Or if you haven't talked about it before, you need to talk about it first before you start throwing your power exchange at it. I find a lot of people do this where they kind of assume power exchange is okay there, even if it hasn't been talked about. And I really think that you should check in before you use your Dom voice to order somebody into doing something. Check in, make sure, okay, did we talk about this? Is this okay? Because you really don't want to cause anyone to have a bad time and have their feelings hurt and have their boundaries crossed because they felt, well, I thought I had to do it because I'm your submissive and you ordered me to, even though we didn't negotiate for it first. So make sure you're doing those good negotiations and having those good conversations. And also, if you are bringing in outside parties, you're having a more experienced Dom come in, you're co-topping, you're co-bottoming, you're giving your submissive partner to a more experienced top to try out a scene, make sure that all of them are also feeling equally respected, seen, and heard whenever you're talking about doing a scene with them. They're not just props, they're not objects, they are other people that have their own needs and boundaries and wants as participants in BDSM with you, and make sure you're being respectful and kind to them. And with that being said, those are all of the suggestions I have for dealing with more extreme and unusual kinks. Remember, even if your kink is unusual or extreme to you, it is fine, it is okay, it is perfectly valid. It might even be really wonderful and awesome. And if you are feeling nervous about talking with your partner about these kinks, you only get to live once, right? If that kink is really important to you and it's really, really something you want to try, I would recommend being brave and just trying to broach that conversation. And if you're not sure how to introduce your partner to a kink, I have a bunch of other videos talking about how to do that. I will have linked down below, as well as resources like I mentioned before about hypnosis and mindfuckery if you want to learn more about that as well. I would love to know your thoughts about this in a comment down below. Have you had a partner or yourself where you have had a more extreme kink? You've had to talk about that, you've had to try to incorporate it into a scene. How did that go? What did you do? Was it one of these suggestions? Was it something else? Again, I would love to know in a comment down below what that looked like. Any of your other thoughts, suggestions, ideas, comments, questions, anything else, go ahead and put it in a comment down below. If you do this, if not already, please do subscribe because I make videos twice a week about all sorts of kink and BDSM related topics. And finally, if you want to support what I do, the best way to do that is with Patreon. A link to that will be down below. If you do already support me there, thank you so much. It means the absolute world to me. And until I see you all next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.